Hey everyone! For this episode of A Dungeon About, we watched the new Dune movie and then talked about it. In particular, this is about part 2 of Denis Villeneuve's adaptation of the Frank Herbert novel. We also briefly touch on the David Lynch movie, but this podcast is about the new Dune. Vincent and I are really into the Dune books, and so the discussion gets pretty deep and detailed, and just to be clear, does contain heavy spoilers. This is spoilers both for the Dune movie as well as the various Dune books. So if you're kind of not into that, then maybe skip this one or give it a listen once you've enjoyed the books in their original splendor, which I highly recommend. If you are already familiar with the Dune books or you don't care about being spoiled, I think you're going to enjoy this episode with our discussion of Dune. Now I will finish my warning. This will contain spoilers. We are going to spoil Dune for you entirely, and also the movie. So you have been warned. There, that's it. You've had your chance, and it's also in the stream title. So if people wander in, they're warned.
Yes.
Although that book, Dune is a book, a novel written in the the 60s,
I think 70s.
70s.
I mean,
Long time ago by a guy named Frank Herbert. And Frank Herbert back then claimed that it is a book about how a charismatic leader can charm a sort of people into war and into doing his bidding, and how it can sort of he can get in over his head. And that is the biggest pile of horse crap I have ever heard by an author about their own work. Because very obviously Dune is not about that, in my opinion at least, or at least not entirely about that, or not even
correct.
centrally about that.
by the way,
Yeah.
65.
65.
1965, yes.
Yeah, that was a good year. Good year for literature.
Yeah.
Because, even though it's kind of old, Dune, I feel like it's more relevant than ever, and has sort of resonated with people for a very long time, and through multiple generations by now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's Dune. We just watched the movie, and we literally did not talk about it on the way home. We restrained ourselves from talking about it.
We got close a few times.
Yeah, I had some after the movie, but which, by the way, okay, we also didn't talk about this, but this is always kind of a fun setup with me and Vincent, us in the cinema. So we walk into the cinema at the Alexanderplatz, which is quite nice. It's okay. My favorite cinema in Berlin was closed during Corona and didn't come back, but that's okay.
At the Alexanderplatz is a cube.
Is it an actual big cinema cube?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
building is
that's
a
okay.
cube.
It makes sense, right? Because they have big rooms with no windows. It's a cinema.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we go in there, and as we always do, Vincent sort of describes to me what's happening in the movie, which he does excellently, exactly in the same way like when we play video games, except that Vincent doesn't control the characters on the screen.
Yeah, it's surprisingly more difficult when you don't have control over the action.
Yeah, because it doesn't, the pacing might be way too quick, right? So you have to make sort of different decisions. But that usually works out quite nicely. And this time, even though the cinema was almost completely empty, there was lots of spaces available. There was this guy in front of us who got wildly upset at Vincent and was like, "Oh, you don't have to narrate the whole movie," which is exactly what Vincent was doing. And then I sort of...
I mean, to be fair, like our seats were directly behind them.
Yeah, but there was so much other space.
Yeah, and they eventually
They did
moved
move?
away, yeah.
Okay, well, I
But
mean,
it
that's
was
the
just
solution.
like the top 4 rows were completely empty, and we took literally the places immediately behind them, which were our assigned seats. But
Yeah, well, I don't know what to tell people. There's no good solution for this. I guess I wish they would have just not closed captioning, but overdubbing or whatever, which exists, and that they give me headphones or whatever. If that was available, I'd use it. The way things are, it's not really available. So this is just how we do it, and it's never been a problem really.
have you tried that for like a home movie?
I have, yeah.
Is it actually good?
Yeah, it's decent.
Okay.
I did that with a Helge Schneider movie, which is a German thing that I'm not going to explain now. But it worked. It wasn't necessary, but it worked. right? It will describe what is on the screen.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that guy got angry and then he moved away. Like, it's once I say I'm like blind and hey, my friend is helping me, and like I say it in a friendly way, it seems to shut people the fuck down.
Yeah.
Like they don't quite know what to say after that, and that's the end of that story. So we've been talking around Dune, Vincent, but we have to get into the into the sands of Arrakis,
Yes.
home of the spice. How'd you like it? We literally did not have this conversation.
Yeah. I have really struggled with that question because honestly, after watching it the first and even the second time, I couldn't have given you a good answer, really.
But you were willing to watch multiple times, so it couldn't have been all bad.
No, it's not that it's bad. It's just so I really like the first one.
Yeah, me too. I think we agree on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite like the second one as much.
Right.
I still think it's a good movie, and I enjoyed watching it even 3 times.
Yeah.
But I didn't get as much enjoyment out of it.
Right.
And I really struggled to answer why that is the case. And I'm still not 100% sure. But yeah, that's just to cut myself short here. I enjoyed it, but not quite as much as the first one. How
Right.
did you like it?
I liked it very much. I had the same effect I had as I did in the first one, which is that the movie's over and I'm like, whoa, 2 hours just went by or more, right? It's just like, there's at no part of it was I bored, and like everything was exciting and stuff. And you know that makes me feel like I enjoyed it, right?
Yeah.
It's a very tense movie all throughout. It's like not happy fun time. It's not like watching the D&D movie, which is also great, but in a different way, right?
Yeah.
I'm more relaxed and I think it's fun and stuff. Here I'm like very tense, but I'm like it captivated my attention the whole time, and it did not drag for me, even though I didn't see it. I mean, I had your excellent description, and as I do, I then sort of watch my own movie generated in my mind.
Yeah.
But it was cool. I thought it was great.
That makes me wonder because, I mean, this was like the one thing we talked about afterwards. They use a lot of different languages and subtitles.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Which makes it incredibly difficult for me because
Yeah.
I have to read the subtitles for you and also describe what's going on
Yes.
while they are talking,
Yes.
which is just
You managed quite well. I mean, you know, I got everything.
Yeah.
At some points, also, I completely take Vincent for granted, and I just tune out that it's a human being next to me. I just think,
Perfect.
yeah, okay.
That's
It's
what I'm
just
going
part of.
for.
Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
mean, you did a really good job.
But that makes it more hectic, right? So I'm wondering,
Sure.
is that
Maybe that's why I wasn't bored.
maybe
Because
yeah.
I have to keep putting the movie. Maybe you would enjoy it more if you just close your eyes, Vincent.
Possibly,
Yeah.
maybe.
And I told you random things. Oh, what I think it looks like.
So
at
really,
that
what you're
point.
saying is we should.
So
just do
now you're
this.
seeing a ornithopter. Ornithopter.
Perfect.
Yeah, but okay. So I liked it. We'll get. I always like to do this thing with my friends. Like you know, also during movie nights, I will annoy
Yes.
people with this little game we play where I ask for ratings and over under, and we'll get to that at the end. You'll have to put a number on it, and I will as well.
Oh boy.
And we'll compare. But let's explore a little bit, okay? About like I like your question. Why did you enjoy this one less than the first one? Because I think I understand why that might be the case. Even though you know, still both of them being on a pretty high level for a movie in general, and I also think, and I wonder if you agree, that this is the sort of canonical version of a Dune movie that we've been coveting for many decades now.
Yes. I mean,
right?
the second one takes more liberties than the first one,
Oh yeah, it does.
but it's definitely a Dune movie, and it's still quite close to the books.
Yeah, and we have a sort of packaged version of the first Dune book that you can just point to as like a piece of cinema that is
Yes.
adequate and represents it very well, right? Just like with Lord of the Rings. Before those, you know, big Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies, there were various works of Lord of the Rings,
Yes.
including a movie, I think, done by the guy who made Fritz the Cat. I talked to you about this a while ago, I remember. Which is, you know, at some point we should watch that, I feel like. But that's,
Do we?
I don't know, it's hilarious.
Maybe. Yeah.
It's just that doesn't have as high a production value, and I also think just generally it's not It's not the canonical version, you know. I feel like Peter Jackson hit it right on the head. It's like perfect,
Yeah.
in my mind. That is Lord of the Rings, and now I feel Denis Villeneuve, whatever his name is.
You did it perfectly then.
Yeah, I did it. Okay, good.
I think. I don't actually know, but yeah.
Well, maybe I think he nailed Dune just as much as I nailed his name just now. So probably reasonably well.
Yeah.
So we can agree on all of that, but you just said like there's a bunch of changes, so maybe we should go over those because I love comparing this shit in a nerdy way with Vincent.
Yes.
So what did you notice? What stuck out most as changes, and did you like them or not?
Well, first of all, one thing the movie did really well is made me wish to read the book again.
Ah, right.
Just to compare.
When did you read it last? How long has it been?
Around the time when the first movie came out. So not that long ago.
Yeah.
Somewhere around 2020, 2019-ish.
Right. It's similar for me.
Yeah. And before that, I think when I was 13.
Right.
So what did I notice? I did notice one thing that I noticed very much is in the book, the duel between Paul Atreides, Janus, and the arena fight of the Harkonnen.
Fight Rafa.
Exactly. Come one after the other.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a very strong contrast there between the two characters and the whole setup and everything. And they changed that. Dennis
and split it out over two separate movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we also the time worked differently. I think at the end of the book, his sister was born.
Yes.
And
she was not born in this movie.
Yeah, she was like 3 or 4, I think.
Yes. Well, she like aged rapidly, I think, also because of her weird exposition to the drug, the water of life.
Yes, but she was born, definitely.
Yes. And also murdered Baron Harkonnen in the book.
Oh, right.
Yes, as a toddler. And you know she can already speak while still in the womb, so maybe that's not surprising. I don't know.
She has knowledge of what, hundreds of years of Bene Gesserit?
Yeah, and she's got a mean attitude, and maybe
like
they should.
Many of the Bene Gesserit.
Oh yes, and, yeah, we can get into that as well. But I think it's a good choice not to have this toddler child murder Baron Harkonnen. I think it would have endangered the movie of like veering into the area of the involuntarily comedic. Right? And I feel like the movie was overall being really, really serious, but in a good way, and being able to pull that off. And I specifically did not say trying to be serious, because I feel like it succeeded. It did not try. It was just serious.
Yes, I would argue it might have even gone a bit too far, but
too serious.
We might get into that.
Yeah, okay, but it just generally, like, it was very tense and like. Yeah, it wasn't campy in any way.
Yeah.
Very much unlike the David Lynch movie, right? That's like...
Heretic.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. It's just goofy sometimes. You know, with they did so many choices. I noticed this, like, also, like, with the taking drugs and stuff, right? The big scene in the Siege caverns when they're with the Fremen.
Don Solarione, my biggest disappointment was that Spice Guild was completely cut. Was hoping to see navigators.
Yes, I was going to get to that's what I mean. So, okay, I was going to talk about the Bene Gesserit and like the drugs and stuff, but also the fucking fish, man. That's like that's a thing in Dune, right? It's not completely obvious in the first book, but I believe in the second, one of those guys is an actual like character, and they're like these floating fish in a tank that they've completely transformed by consuming so much spice, and they exist in this sort of gas of spices they have to continuously inhale.
Yeah.
And they're really out there. Like their mind is really open and stuff. And that's the thing. And those aren't in the movie. But David Lynch had that, right? At the very start, like of the movie, I believe David Lynch had that scene that is also in the book where the Emperor talks to one of those fish navigator guys. And it's the fish that says the boy must not survive. Because they I'm sorry, I'm talking so much, Vincent, but
No, it's
just-
fine. I'm just looking at
Right.
the navigators in Dune.
Oh, you have a picture of the David Lynch movie?
Yeah, I've looked for dunes, and
Right.
Google recommended me navigators in Dune.
But looking at the fish guy, you know what I mean with like goofy, like a little bit.
Sure.
I mean, I guess Lynch has his own sort of tone that he's often going for, right? And he does stuff that's weird, like Laura Palmer just without any music, walking straight at the camera and like right,
Yeah.
and he keeps the shot going for way longer than is comfortable.
Yeah.
And he has a certain effect he's going for, but. Do you know what I mean? There's a version of Dune that one can make that feels a lot like 300, right? Imagine Zack Snyder made Dune, like
Interesting concept.
right. I'm not saying I wouldn't watch that. I generally like Zack Snyder. I like 300, right? But that movie is campy, and this Dune movie is not camp, like not at all. So yeah, I missed the fish. And that's also where I thought it could go a little bit goofy or a little bit intense and extreme and just very colorful. And I was sort of expecting that to have more like flashy drug-induced visions, right? And the big orgy in the siege and stuff. Seeing stuff from Jessica's perspective. How did they show that in the movie, Vincent?
Well, there was no orgy,
Right. Yeah.
and the way
There,
she.
Flora, I read the book, but didn't see the second movie. I was so curious about how the navigator was going to be like in it.
Yeah.
My day
Yeah.
was ruined.
I'm sorry, but I did warn you. So no, I get it.
Yeah. The only glimpse at navigators we get is in the first movie.
Yeah, they're still in their human form.
And to continue to spoil the second movie,
Yeah.
no orgy, and the way they show the water. So in the book, Jessica drinks this the water of life,
Yeah.
which is a poison made by the spice worm or the sandworms.
Yeah, they actually show how it's made, which I think is not in the first book. I might be wrong. It's been a while.
I think they talk about it, but they might not show it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the book, she ingests it, and then we get we zoom basically into her body and her mind, and she, through her Bene Gesserit training,
Yeah.
she literally transforms it chemically to make it drinkable, and then they
Yeah.
use that as basically alcohol or drugs or whatever you want.
Do you see CSI like sort of zooming in montages of like molecules being transformed? Okay.
What you see is the embryo,
Right.
her unborn child, and
But how do you see that? Like, do they show sonography pictures? Like
No,
from an
they-
OBGYN? Like,
they made a three-dimensional figure basically and
Right.
just put it against the black back.
all right.
And I think we see it before that even. Yeah, I think Paul is talking about it, and then we see the embryo.
Right.
And when she drinks the water of life, which is very clear and bright blue.
Right.
Um,
Like
we-
the eyes of the Fremen.
Yeah, basically. We see the same black that we saw before, but now it's swirling with this blue, or this blue color is swirling into it. And then we cut over to the embryo, and the embryo is as well surrounded by this blue water.
Right.
And that's it. And then you have the Fremen woman.
Right. She dies and stuff. Spoilers. Not really a highly relevant character, but yeah.
Yes.
That happens. That's the same in the book, I think. And they make it visually clear that the unborn daughter of Jessica gets sort of poisoned by the water of life, just like her mother, and is now sort of touched by it and expanded in a way. And that's really clear in the book because she has a literal conversation and stuff. And that's always tricky, right? I was very much wondering how they were going to do this because in literature, it's easy to give insight into the interiority of characters. And you can have like mental conversations and mental imagery and stuff. And that's harder in a movie. But I mean, I guess it came across.
Yeah. I mean, Jessica was just talking to herself, basically.
Yeah,
With-
and that was interesting to me, right? Because they kept that up after the ceremony, right? There's this scene, you described it that way, where she's just walking through the halls of the siege,
Yeah.
and she's just sort of talking to herself like a crazy person. And like people are reacting to herself around her.
Yes. What you didn't see is that she's always holding her belly
Right.
while talking, but yes, she's just talking to herself.
And you don't hear the part of the child.
No.
Right?
Not at
And-
all.
Yeah, and that's an interesting choice because they could have totally done a voiceover and stuff. But not having it there, I feel like makes the movie seem a little bit more serious, more naturalistic.
Yeah.
But they also managed to not make her seem like a total crazy person.
Yeah, I think they also did a good job at showing off that she's using that crazy persona she has to make the Fremen fear and
Yeah.
revere her, basically.
Yeah, I mean that scene shows her sort of scheming with her daughter on how to convert the Fremen
Yeah.
to worship Paul.
Yeah, and she's actually like in that scene while she talks about it, she's looking at a group of Fremen who are
Right.
hiding in the darkness, looking fearful at her.
Yeah.
And it's actually really impressive for the actress that it's just a close up of her face, and while she talks about it, her face changes from a rather neutral, maybe friendly face
Right.
into like this mask of that sort of creates fear.
Right. When she is that the face she used when she does the voice?
No, not that far. It's
All
a
right.
rather subtle change, but still very
All right.
impressive.
Another big change which I noticed is, of course, just the Emperor. Can we talk a little bit about the Emperor?
Oh God, yes.
I feel like that's a negative point for you, right? Did you envision the Emperor differently in the book, Vincent?
I think honestly, my version of the Emperor is the version from the first movie. That not the 1st movie,
The Lynch one?
the Lynch one. Yeah, because in that he's basically played by someone who appears as a competent military leader.
Yeah.
And also like an older gentleman, but not like in his 70s, more like 50s maybe.
Yeah.
And in this case, I really didn't like the casting, and also
Christopher Walken as the
Christopher
Emperor.
Walken as the Emperor, which is an interesting choice. And he also, I don't know if it's just him or specifically the acting. It
Right.
just didn't seem very capable as the Emperor.
Yeah.
And that sort of works because the Bene Gesserit are behind a lot of the scheming he does.
Yeah, they get very much sort of featured in this movie. And I feel like they've given way more agency to them and specifically to his daughter, Princess Irulan or whatever.
Yeah, but there were multiple scenes where he tried to be an emperor and lead the room, basically, and it never worked for me.
Yeah, it's also, we've talked a little bit about this in the cinema. If you just watch this movie or both movies, you didn't read the books, I don't think it becomes clear what the central stakes are plot-wise, right? There's a ton of theme in the story that I love, but there's also actual plot happening, and it's the Emperor is sort of behind everything, right? I mean, I'm going to say it now, okay, Vincent? This might bore you, but just so we have it, in our discussion, we're all on the same page. The way I understand the setup of Dune is that the Leto Atreides, the Duke of House Atreides, has over a long period trained up really competent fighters, and the Emperor basically feels threatened by that. That's basically it.
Yeah.
And if that continues for some generations, this might endanger the Emperor's power.
Also, because Duke Leto is like, so the central powers are the Landsrat. I think it's the same in English, which is the
great
group-
houses.
The great houses, exactly. And then on the other hand, the Emperor. And the Emperor leads because he has the Sardaukar, which are the best army in the
Yes.
galaxy, universe, whatever. And Duke Leto is not only threatening the power of the Emperor through his troops, but also because he's loved in the Landsrat.
Yeah.
So he had the power to take over, basically.
He has military and political power
Yeah.
and is a real threat. And the emperor then comes up with this grand scheme to give Arrakis to him just to sort of backstab him with the Harkonnen. And he doesn't care about Arrakis that much, and he doesn't care about the Harkonnen and stuff. I mean, sure, he cares about Arrakis because everyone cares about Arrakis, but it's a plot by him to kill Atreides. And then there's another interested party, the Navigators Guild, the Fishes, and they want the same thing, but for completely different reasons.
Yeah.
They're not threatened by Duke Leto and his troops or his political power. They see Paul Muad'Dib as a threat to them. You know, they've foreseen it through like their use of spice and looking to the future and stuff. And their goals and the Emperor's sort of align. You know, they think they can do both at the same time. And that's the setup for Dune. And in the center, this is really the only reason the entire story works. That Arrakis is this magical place where spice comes from, and it's the only place in the universe. And this also, you know, it's not clear in the movie at all that the entire universe is hooked on spice and addicted to spice, and they use it like we use salt, and it sort of extends your life and stuff.
I'm pretty sure that it's mentioned that it's needed for space travel, but that's not the only reason that the people need spice.
Yeah, but
No, so, like
it
the
comes.
Baron Harkonnen, for example,
Yeah.
is using a lot of spice to stay
Interesting
alive.
though that it does not seem to expand his consciousness, right?
I think it depends on how much you take.
Yeah,
Because the only ones that really benefit from it are Paul to some extent.
yeah,
The Fremen mostly have weird dreams, I think.
and
And
they
then-
have blue eyes and stuff.
Yeah, but they don't gain any spectacular future vision from it.
No,
And
they don't.
So it's basically just the Navigator Guild
Right.
and the Bene Gesserit, but they also take the hyper concentrated water of life. And
Yeah,
only
which is
then do they
sort
get
of different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
only then do they get the power of foresight, which is also what Paul eventually does.
Yeah, and I feel like Paul has like the best version of it.
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea with the Kwisatz Haderach and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I guess if you haven't read Dune, none of this makes sense to you, or at least large parts of it. But that's the sort of central conceit of the plot, and it doesn't really come through in the movies, and it doesn't matter. Like I feel like because you know spice is valuable. Emotionally, it comes through.
You say that, but the first time I watched the movie, I watched it with two friends of mine, and they both, neither of them had read the books,
Right.
and they both had the issue that sort of in the middle, they were not really sure why the Fremen were fighting or
Right.
why anything was happening, basically.
Well, that's bad if a movie
Yes.
gets you to that place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or okay.
But I can't really talk about it beyond that because I've read the book.
Yeah, it's hard to judge now, I guess. But oh well, it's just something to notice. And I don't know, just from hearing the guy, I'm okay with
Don
the Emperor.
Solarione, I believe that it was mentioned in the later books that powers gained by consuming spice depends on genetics.
Interesting.
E.g., there is a gene that makes you completely not visible for people that can see the future.
Yes, spoilers for later books, Don Swear, and you're probably also completely aware of it, that the navigators, like the fish people, Paul can't see them. Like he can't, at least not in the future vision. I think he can literally see them, right? You know,
Yeah.
like vision-wise.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
If they can see the future and he can see the future.
Yeah,
And
it's
even
probably
though-
too complex for the grand computer to simulate.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And both of them can influence how the future works out.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, they're not predictable because of this high
Yeah.
complexity, because they themselves are predictors. And that's why, spoilers for later Dune books, they sort of meet and people are plotting to kill Paul. And the people who meet and plot, they always have to have a fish there, right? It's like they only talk about it when the fish is there. And they need the fish because otherwise Paul would know about it, because he is the grand god emperor of Dune that knows everything. But yeah, I don't know. So like Christopher Walken, I think, is funny because there's this Fat Boy Slim video that has Christopher Walken in it, right?
Yes.
Where he's just dancing through a hotel lobby and sort of flying around. And
Eventually gains powers, yes.
that's the image I always had in my head while I was watching Dune. And I thought, oh, that's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
That's
So they are trying to be a serious movie, and they are mostly succeeding, except Christopher Walken for me.
no, but it's still serious because there's precedent for this, right? There's just weird stuff in the Dune universe, right? In the first movie too, they have the cats where you need the milk and like weird spider robots and
Oh yeah,
just stuff that's weird and looks
Sure.
different.
I'm just talking about the movie. The movie is serious, except when Christopher Walken is on screen, because I can't
you
really.
think you felt like he's goofy?
Yes,
Yeah,
and
okay,
just
right.
misplaced. But
Yeah.
maybe I'm alone.
Did you like them putting so much responsibility on the Bene Gesserit and the princess and stuff?
I honestly didn't mind that.
Yeah, I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
I'm totally fine. I generally like all the changes they make. I'm totally okay with.
And I'm also, if there is a third movie, that makes me more excited about the role of the princess and the Bene Gesserit.
Yeah, I would at this point. They've done the first book. It's to me the most important one. And if they now just continue making these movies, but they sort of spin it off into their own little story, and it keeps diverging, I'm totally fine with that. I'm okay with that. Many people don't super love the later books, or at least the middle books of the series, I guess.
Yeah. Have you read them?
Not all, no.
Okay. But you've read the second one? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've only read the first one. Again, this
Yeah,
movie makes me want to makes me want to read the second one as well. So
yeah. I only sort of spoiled it for you. It's like there's still good stuff in there.
I don't mind the spoilers, honestly.
Yeah, I understand.
But yeah, the movie is doing its job in that regard.
So were there any other big changes? I don't think there were. Well,
Don
actually,
Solarione, regarding things that was cut from the movie.
right.
In the book. At some point, Paul sees that even if he dies during the duel, it will not stop the jihad. I
Yeah.
hoped it will be in the movie, as Paul being completely not in control.
Yeah, I noticed that on this third viewing now, in the scene where after he drinks the water of life, there's a moment where he talks to his mother, where they're alone in the room and he's sitting next to the water pit where they drown the mini worms, and they're talking, and he's talking about how he sees one way through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And for a split second there is they cut to him getting stabbed in the last fight,
Really?
which is also I also noticed in the last fight when he is stabbed, he is not fearful at all, not worried. He just looks at Chani like, this is just another Tuesday for me. I know what's going to happen. And I found that very interesting because I like the way they portray him once he takes the water of life, just an all-knowing being, basically.
Yeah.
And that's not how I remember it in the book, where there was a significant struggle in the book where he's deciding whether to use some trick or poison blade or something or not. And he eventually doesn't and still wins the fight. But it's close and it's very dangerous, and he's contemplating whether to use that against Fate Rota.
Yeah. To Don Salarion's point, though, the whole it will continue when I'm dead thing, there is a point earlier in the movie, I believe, where that is being taken up. That point where I think before he drinks the water of life, Paul is like, well, we're going to go north, and even if I die, then others will continue the fight, and the Arrakis will belong to the Fremen.
Oh.
He does say something like that.
Yeah, no, you're right. When they are in the tent and it's he gets his name.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember that.
So at least he's at that point. I feel like it was still this whole this is a selfless leader kind of thing. He certainly didn't have actual full-fledged future vision powers.
Yeah.
At that point, but it's a little bit of that. I mean, in general, they've cut some stuff, right? They've mixed stuff around, but tried to maintain the same theme and general thrust of the story. And I think generally they did it quite well.
Yeah, one thing I'm really curious about, which is why I want to read the first book again, is whether they have changed the sort of positions of Jessica and Paul in regards to him going south. Because the way I remember it is that he is terrified of the Holy War, and he really doesn't want to do that. But there's something drawing him south, and I can't remember whether that's just Jessica or if that's him as well.
I don't remember either, not completely. But I mean, in both movie and book, Paul...
Don Solarione, hope they will do the later books as well. So Jason Momoa will be trapped on dunes till the end of his life, conquering enemies with power of his sexual attractiveness.
So Jason Momoa,
good, yeah.
I really love that casting, but was he, I can't remember this now, was he playing Duncan Idaho or Gurney?
Duncan Idaho.
Right. Because, spoilers, everyone, Duncan Idaho does reappear in the later books.
There, Clara, I am all in for that.
Yeah, I liked his performance a lot. I also like the character, and I love the fucking character that comes back. Spoilers for Vincent.
But wait. Is he, like, does he get resurrected, or is it a clone or something like that? Or is he really just not dead?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, boy.
Like, yes to all of them?
Because the issue is, in the first movie,
Yeah.
he had that arc already in his final fight. Because he gets stabbed and then he falls to the side, and the
Don Solarione,
opponent-
somehow Duncan had returned.
Yes, and,
It was foreshadowing, Vincent.
yes, the Sardaukar just sort of ignore him, and then he gets up again and kills them all again until he finally succumbs to his wounds.
Yeah, call Drogo.
Yes,
Coming to the rescue. I'm here for it, and yeah.
I enjoyed his character. That's not an issue. I'm just wondering how. But
Especially that guy with what he turns into. That would be hilarious, man. And I think, I hope they make the next movie. I hadn't thought about Duncan, so thanks for that. So here's the like, I could keep talking about this movie forever, I feel like. Here's another big change. How do you like Chani? Because she's definitely changed.
I told you that on the way here. I read a comment about how the actress Zendaya always looks like an American tourist.
Right.
And I can see that.
How is that possible? Is it her, like, how she holds herself, her habit? Like, she have a fucking camera on her neck? Like,
Kind of.
because
Well,
let's
not
just
really.
be like, right? They cast all the Fremen as brown skinned, right?
Yeah.
Not?
To some extent, yeah, more like Arabian or
Right.
like North African, and her skin is a bit darker, I think. But yeah, no, it's just
But she's not like a white person in the middle.
no,
of,
it's
like-
not that. It's not her appearance.
Right.
It's more
yeah,
the way
she behaves herself.
handles
Yeah,
herself.
which is
Yeah.
so interesting. It's like, yeah, I feel just audio wise, I think she sounded fine, and I liked her character, and I liked the changes they made. Right, they give Shani a little bit more influence and power, and you know, it's just books written in different eras are just a little bit different sometimes. Just stuff gets updated over time. The
yeah.
culture changes. It doesn't mean that, you know, the old book is like you have to burn it or whatever.
Did you remember that he sort of got the wife and children of Jamis?
Was she with Jonas before?
No, that an entirely different family. He
Oh,
killed Jamis, and
yeah, sure.
In Fremen culture, you take what you kill or something like that.
Yeah.
And he just took the other family, and then
Right.
he had this sort of maid/wife character.
I mean, it's probably just it's a rule they probably had. I'm speculating now, but it's probably also meant in this way. Hey, if you kill a guy, you have to support his family after that,
Yeah,
right? As in, that's my mate now. Meaning I have to pay for them now. So you don't
basically.
go around killing people willy nilly.
But, there was, in
also,
the books, that was a bit weird. And
Wow. I mean-
I'm glad that they kind of just left that.
I wouldn't mind it if they kept that, just because I feel like even back then that was weird in the book, and it was on purpose to be something that we find distasteful at the very least, right? Just to make it very apparent that the Fremen culture is like very different from what Paul knows, and it's different from our system of morals and values, and it's rough, right? And this is a hard place. It's like Paul, what he says in the movie, this place is beyond cruel. Right. And I always felt like in the books too, the sort of coming of age arc of Paul, who's like 14 when he comes to Arrakis. It's very much for him, it's the loss of innocence, right? Being on Arrakis, it's like Frodo leaving the Shire.
Yeah.
It's like suddenly things get real, and
Although
like death is
Frodo
a thing.
It's like 50, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess, but you know what I mean. It's this change from innocence to like serious adulthood and stuff. But they've changed the Fremen a little bit, right? I think they've softened them up a little bit to be more palatable to us. And that's one aspect of that. Also, that just I feel like all the ladies are fighting a lot more.
Don
right?
Solarione, what do you guys think of the music?
Oh.
I got the feeling that it was a little better in the first movie.
Oh, that's interesting. I think you might be right. I hadn't thought about it, but I mean, it didn't bother me. I feel like it stayed in the background, which sometimes is where film music should be. But I feel like there was like one or two moments in the first one where I felt like, oh man, the music really hits me now, and I feel shudders and stuff.
Yeah,
that wasn't in this.
Have we watched the Elmo scene on stream?
Of course, where Elmo puts the hand in the ganja bar, or in the box.
That's like the main music scene I remember, where like the music is really driving the whole scene.
Yeah,
and we didn't really have anything like that. So I think I would agree.
It feels like just vague Oriental desert chanting, and occasional like sinister growling and like Harkonnen chanting and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I mean, the sound design in general was pretty good. I feel like.
Yeah. I agree.
But the music, it's just it's not. I'm never gonna go out and say, oh boy, I'm gonna put on the Dune soundtrack on YouTube now, which is something I would do for I don't know, Lord of the Rings. Or Terminator 2, one of my favorite soundtracks, weirdly.
Okay.
It's really good. Check it out. Main theme. It's just really good. But yeah, probably not for this one. Not for Dune.
It's not that it's bad, but it's a little depressing and dramatic.
I like the whole movie.
Yes. But that's why I wouldn't listen to the music, I think.
Yeah. But maybe if you want, if we did an RPG that's like Dune Desert Center or whatever, we might put it on just to remind us of it. But just to finish a thought on Chani, like they made, just like all the Fremen women and women in general, they seem to have much more agency, much more sort of power. I remember Chani from the books being sort of very much kind of a trophy wife. Maybe that's too much, but like Paul had these visions of her, and he was like pursuing her, and like she was part of the whole thing, but she didn't really have any agency, and she seemed very much as an accessory to his sort of empire, jihad, reign, whatever. And I'm fine with that, being in that book, just as I'm fine and happy with the change they made. I think it worked out quite well. I did feel like at some point, I just had this question in the movie, like, oh, why is Chani so much against him becoming more deep? Why is she so pissed about that? Because she was pissed about that, right?
Yeah, also, I felt like the whole, whether he wanted, or what he wanted and what she wanted wasn't quite consistent for me. Because he said he didn't want power, and then there were the nuclear warheads, and suddenly he was sort of interested. And she was terrified of him getting power, but also liked him as sort of the leader of that group.
What did she want? She wants the planet for the Fremen, right? Freedom for the Fremen and stuff.
Yes. And
she sees him as being able to give it to them. potentially.
Potentially,
But is she just against this whole jihad thing? Is she not into conquering the whole galaxy?
I think so.
Yeah,
That is
probably, right?
I think that's the same for him in general. I think he was,
Originally, right?
I think he was happy fighting the Harkonnen with the Fremen
Yeah.
in the north. He just didn't want to go south and potentially attack the whole galaxy.
Yeah. And he knew that was going to happen once he does it.
Yeah, just like this distinction was a bit muddy to me at times.
Yeah, I agree. It's might be for me the weakest point of the movie, just the motivations not being clear. I understand. I'm okay with Paul being a bit muddy because he's struggling internally, right, with this whole terrible purpose thing that they also keep mentioning in the book, and I feel like they did a fine job of showing his struggle in the movie as well. But like how Chani fits in there and she being kind of a counterpoint to him. It's not quite as clear as it maybe could be.
Yeah.
It is also interesting to me. So I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong about it, but like back in the day, just as they are today, I would say Fremen are very orientally influenced and very much influenced by Islam, right? And so the way I understand the role of women in Islam is that it's of course complex and nuanced. But one of the stories I remember is of Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, being dictated the Quran, right? Originally, as I understand it, this was he was illiterate; he couldn't read or write, but was dictated the Quran by a sort of vision, the Archangel Gabriel, I believe. And he originally though thought that it's like a demon talking to him, right? And he didn't want to hear it and stuff. And then it was his wife at the time who actually talked to him and was like, "No, this is like the Archangel Gabriel. Yeah, you should write this down or let this happen or whatever." And I just find that interesting as a comparison to Paul Muad'Dib, who is definitely a prophet for a very sort of Islamic influenced tribe of people, and who has a sort of moral authority figure as a woman at his side, literally his wife, right? And I think they've given Chani more of that role in this movie. She sort of didn't do that in the books so much. Here she's very much a guide, and I think they try to make her a kind of moral authority who reins Paul in when he like goes too far or is led astray or whatever. I think that's what they were trying to do, right? It's just it doesn't quite work yet, or it's like a setup for later movies, right? I could see like that developing at least.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, is there any scene where she stops him?
Well, she doesn't stop him, right? She just gets really pissed and starts shouting and stuff and walks out during like the big council leader meeting and stuff. And then later in the throne room, I think she's not happy and stuff.
Yep.
She's not happy when he marries the other princess and stuff.
Definitely, yeah. Yes, in that case, 100%. What was her point in when the leaders met?
Well, he was like going all in, man, on the
Don
like, prophet
Solarione,
stuff.
I got the feeling that she was against Paul becoming basically cult leader instead of political leader.
Yes, I agree with Don Solarione. Like she
Yeah.
didn't, because way from the start, that's also not completely in the books, right? She had there was this whole dichotomy between sort of progressive, more secular Fremen and fundamentalist Southerner Fremen who believe in the prophecies. And the new Fremen, the kids, are sort of laughing about that and think like, oh, Stilgar is like a Fremen boomer guy who believes this stuff. And Chani was of the new generation who didn't believe all the culty stuff. Although she kind of went along with it, I felt like she was sort of ambiguous. Does she believe it or not?
Yeah.
But she's not into that cult stuff.
No, but I'm also, I don't know. I just like in the leader meeting, for example, she's talking not to Paul but rather to Stilgar to stop it.
Yeah.
And I'm, yeah, I don't know. It's just
Why does she do that at that point? Because I remember at that moment I was wondering, why is she Why does she want him to stop? This seems to kind of be all going the way she wants, right? This is how Paul will lead like the millions of Fremen to attack the north.
Yes, because at that point she had already kind of lost, honestly, right? Because he
Yeah.
already was the Quida Khazraj.
Yeah. I like that the conflict with her basically her stepmom. How that, like, they hate each other, and the stepmom gets what she wants. It's really like hilarious joke coming up. But if you have a stepmom that you can't get along with, better not her be a Bene Gesserit. That's a bad time, right?
Yeah.
With her using the voice on you. I don't know.
Yes, that would be an issue.
Yes. Hilarious r/am I the asshole posts coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like that subreddit is at least 50% about like, let's say, step parents being too involved in your life.
Yeah, and Jessica is definitely. I mean, she went south first and riled the fundamentalist up.
Yeah. But okay, so Chani is like, I like it, but I can see how that's sort of a weak point. So you said other people had like, they felt like the midsection is a bit of a slow point. You also generally felt the second movie is kind of not as good as the first one.
Yeah.
I wonder, Vincent, how do you feel about the books? Because in my mind, the first half of just the first book is way better than the second half. And honestly, in the book, the ending of the first one, well, I kind of felt like Frank Herbert was like, okay, I gotta finish this up. Let's just end it. Because it's a bit ad hoc at the end, right? It's just this sort of, oh yeah, now they're in the throne room and he kills the guy and then like they get married and like Paul wins. The end.
Yeah.
And it's just a bit abrupt. And
It is, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I like it in the book.
Yeah, it's a fine overall story, right? It's just, yeah, I wonder if, could it be handled better? I don't even know.
Maybe,
It's just, even in the book, the second half feels noticeably different than the first one.
Yeah,
And
but
could it just be that the movies just reflect an issue with the books?
possibly. I mean, I don't mind in the books. The basic question is how does Paul Muad'Dib become a cult leader? And
Right.
once that's done, then the book finishes within like 50 pages. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's also kind of the same for the movies, right? Once he drinks the water of life, it's over pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Which I like. I didn't particularly like the big combat at the end, and I didn't need any more of that.
Were they fight scenes like cool? Was it like cool choreography?
Don Solarione, the first book was great, the next 3 are good, latter ones are not good, but at least really weird. The books written by Herbert's son should be burned.
Oh man.
Yeah, I've heard that
Strong
multiple
opinions
times.
here by Don Solarione. And you also didn't like the well, I guess the last books in the series. I guess not, because those are written by the son. But even the later books that Frank Herbert wrote, because I've heard it often that the first one is good, then in the middle there's a slump in the whole Dune series, and then the later books get good again.
Yeah, same. I've heard that the 5th and 6th book are decent.
Yeah,
again.
and you kind of have to you have to struggle through some of the mid parts to get to the good stuff, which is always a tough sell for me.
But you were asking about the combat scenes, and
Yeah.
I think they're fine for what, like the actual one-on-one combat, like Chani fighting Sadoka. It's fine.
All right.
They have that weird situation that the final bastion of the Emperor on Dune was attacked by sandworms, which I believe is also happens in the book. Although in the book,
Probably as a side sentence.
no, I think in the book one of the powers of Paul is summoning sandworms. But
okay.
I might be wrong. Maybe that's from the David Lynch movie. But anyway, that doesn't happen here. They just call them with thumpers. And
There's, by the way, sorry to interrupt, I keep doing this, but there's a lot of thumpers in this movie. Talk about sound design. There's like a thumper sound in every other scene.
yeah, either that or they are hitting sand.
Yeah, I just really noticed that. That keeps being there. But it's it's clever, right? Because that's almost like war drums, right? They keep ramping up what's going to happen at the end.
And it is like especially this hitting the special sand.
Yeah.
It's a very iconic sound.
It is, yeah. I wonder if go pound sand is an insult in Fremen society.
Possibly, yeah.
Possibly not. Yeah, who knows?
But the weird thing is, so this final bastion was attacked by multiple worms,
Yeah.
and we had these shots where we would see the entire army and the warships of the Sardaukar, and in the middle, they had sort of, I didn't really describe that because there was no time, but there was the Emperor's ship that was an orb of silver.
Yeah.
And below that, they had sort of, yes, they had sort of built out of silver a pyramid.
Awesome.
And it's not quite clear where exactly the throne room was in that whole setup. But we don't ask any questions.
Sure.
But the weird thing is, because the sandworms are so big and the army was so big and the camera was so far away that it all looked sort of tiny.
Ah, yeah. Like
And-
toy soldiers.
Yeah, basically. And yeah, that was, I don't know, not even bad or weird. It's just something that I noticed.
I remember after watching the first movie, you are really
Don
into...
Solarione, in the last Herbert's books there is quite a lot of interesting ideas about how spice works or how technology restrictions can be bypassed, but it is all ruined by idiotic main plot, and obsessing with sex. Not that I'm against it, but there is so much of it, it is unsettling.
Interesting. Well, maybe Herbert got a little bit horny in his later years. I don't know. But it's,
And then they fuck again. And then they
and then they smoke spice, and then they fuck.
Well, time for another orgy.
I don't know. I'm still curious about reading them. I'm sure at one point I'll get around to them. I think if you say there's like good ideas, I already like that about the second book.
Flora, Piss Don Solarione is great.
A pissed Don Solarione.
Don Solarione,
Thanks.
I'm only going to say that Duncan has a magic cock.
Flora, now I want to read the other
I
books.
know, you're really selling them. I need to see Duncan's magic cock now. It's like, now I can see them making the other movies with Jason Momoa and stuff. And like the
That's
later
why we
movies,
cast him.
they're just going to have the tone of like, I don't know, Thor, Valhalla, or any of those movies. You know what I mean? Like jokes all the time. Like,
Maybe that
oh,
would work. Yeah.
I foresee the future, Duncan, and it's full of cock.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. I don't know.
Sounds good. I'd
At
probably
some
watch
point, they're allowed to go silly. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that. A bit of silliness is good for science fiction, I think.
Yeah. So, last point I have, like, what's your overall take on Dune, theme-wise? We've talked about the plot. What is Dune about? There you go, Vince. Give me the video essay on Dune. And specifically, do you think whatever it is that it's mainly about for you, is the movie about the same thing as the book? That's kind of what I want to get at. Because Dune is about a shit ton of stuff, I feel like.
Okay.
It's dense.
Before I answer that,
Yes.
I remember one last thing that changed from the movie to the book. In the book, as far as I remember, at the end of it, he kills Fate Router and marries the princess, and then that's it. In the movie, there's more. Not a lot more, but they set up the third movie, right?
Because of the Landsrat and stuff. Yeah.
The ships appear, and they
Yeah.
set up the Holy War.
I agree. I actually think the movie was ended more skillfully than the book. If what you want to do is set up the continued story, right? I mean,
Okay. I'm in two minds about that, but
oh yeah. It's just that at the point when Frank Herbert wrote the first book, I don't know if he had like a series in mind, right?
Yeah.
Because tone-wise or style-wise, it kind of sounds like he wanted to put a ribbon on it, and it's a done story after the first book.
Yeah.
But then he kept writing more, and I feel like if you know you were going to continue it in the way that he did continue it, yeah, you could have done a little bit more setup without sacrificing the integrity of the original story,
Okay. Well,
which here they did in the movie.
I think I like the book ending better. I honestly
Yeah?
have to say.
What did you like better?
Just that it's a complete story.
Right.
That the story is not about the Holy War, but rather the danger of the Holy War and Paul's ascension,
Right.
so to speak. And then once that is done and the decisions have been made, then the book ends, and it doesn't set
Yeah.
up the next book.
I do feel like maybe visually that is in there, but I feel like the original book had a bit more of a triumphant ending for Paul. And this was not quite in the movie. I think the movie ends with shots of Chani sort of looking over the beautiful Arrakis and like crying or whatever.
Almost crying. They don't cry because they're Fremen.
Hey, that whole Chani is the desert oasis and has to cry into Paul's mouth or whatever. That's not in the book, right?
She's the
But that's what she did. That right?
desert spring. But yes,
She did that, and she had to like wake him up again.
I think she also has to wake him up in the
Oh, yeah?
books, but
I
maybe
might have
not with the
forgotten that.
tears. But the whole thing is a lot longer. Like he's in a coma for like 8 weeks or something.
Oh, wow,
and,
okay.
and she cares for him, or her. I think her his mother cares for him.
Yeah.
And Chani is either the whole time involved or only becomes involved at the end
Right.
when he awakens.
But that desert oasis thing with the tears and stuff, did they add that?
Not specifically, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't mind it. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's just I feel like that motif is kind of weird. This whole crying, and I feel like that's in other stories, but I'm not sure where I get it from. I think like fairy tales and stuff. I seem to remember fairy tales with like a blind prince or whatever, or he like goes blind while he's like saving the princess or whatever, and then she cries and her tears like give him sight again and stuff. I feel like might be a German fairy tale that
Maybe.
has that.
I remember from Harry Potter. Where
Oh, yeah?
The tears of the phoenix can heal all wounds.
There you go.
And Harry dies at the end of the second one to the basilisk's poison, or is about to end. The phoenix tears save him.
Ah, nice. Yeah, I guess tears being magical and also healing and restorative is like a common thing, right?
And they're specifically important in Dune because you don't lose water. And I
Yes,
also
that has been sufficiently established.
one of my favorite parts about in the book is the duel, or the two duels, the one in the arena with Freydhauter and
Yeah.
Paul's duel. And in Paul's duel, he also cries at the end because that's the first time he
Sheds
killed
water.
someone.
Yeah.
And that really impacts the Fremen because they are so hard-boiled, and it's a life of war, and that's the first time they probably see somebody crying, and it's about killing someone in an honorable duel.
Yeah.
And it messes with their mind.
Yeah, I was surprised that it's not in the movie, but you know, the movie's already long. I can see why they cut stuff. It's also, you know, stuff has been dropped. Like there was not the dinner scene with Elliot Kynes at the Atreides mansion. There's not like random little scenes with Jessica stressing out about the bullhead that killed the grandfather and stuff. You remember that stuff? Because that gets featured quite heavily in the book and stuff. And there would have even been set up because Paul gets sort of stabbed in the end, right? Kind of like the bull stabbing the grandfather and stuff.
Yeah, true.
But, you know, you got to cut, kill your babies. The best part is no part, etc.
Yeah.
And, you know, I felt like it was a tight, well-paced movie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because I think I disagree.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we established that, right? Other people felt like, okay, Hank's in the middle and stuff, and I didn't.
Yeah, not only that, because there are a lot of moments, well, a lot is too much, but some moments where I think something went a little wrong in the editing department.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Please elaborate.
Because there are multiple moments where I thought, or I had questions that were not answered, even though they felt like they should have been answered by an earlier scene. And that's like minor things like how did Paul get to be at the place where they collect the water of life alone, even
Right.
though he has followers and Chani
Yeah.
and everybody's there basically.
He
And there
just sort of walks into the temple.
yeah, and
It was a bit weird, yeah.
there was also right before that was a scene where they are riding the sandworms, and I felt like there should have been. Maybe I just missed that, or maybe I read it wrong. But it felt like there was supposed to be a moment where he takes his sandworm to another place while all the others continue south or whatever,
Yeah.
where he splits from the group, and it just wasn't there.
Yeah.
Or maybe I missed it. There was also I don't know how much you noticed that, but Chani had a female fighter with her. That
Yeah,
they
her
were,
friend, right?
yeah, they were often talking about Paul and his mother, and somehow she stayed at the siege when they left, and she was picked up by the Harkonnen, and then Fade Router burned her with a flamethrower. And
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
because she's a spy, right?
Yeah, but why is she there?
What do you mean? Why is she still left there?
Yeah.
Because the Fremen found out that she's a spy and they left her behind. She's also like bloody and stuff and probably fought with them, right?
She fought the Harkonnen.
Do you see her fight there, Conan?
No, but that's what Fade Router he gets her knife, and then
Right.
he talks to her and
Yeah.
tells her that you killed 9 of my men with this one blade,
Yeah.
something like that. That's how I read it, at least. That she isn't a spy for the Harkonnen, but rather that she's just left there, and I don't understand why.
I thought she's a spy for the Harkonnen.
Maybe,
And
but-
maybe they just, they're tired of her. The Harkonnen motivations, I'm okay with them just being belligerent.
But that's exactly what I mean. It feels like there should be a scene about her, why she's there, and it's just not there.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. There were some gaps, like all the stuff you mentioned, especially if I saw the movie multiple times. I think I would agree more. But I think I'm generally sort of happy to accommodate movies. Not to blow my own horn, but this may be specifically to the situation I'm in anyway, where I don't get a lot of information, right? A lot of
Yeah.
visual information and stuff. And I'm very used to just giving a movie or a viewing experience a hell of a lot of leeway to just jump around and not make sense. And I have to accommodate that stuff and make it make sense in my mind.
Also, something I noticed while watching it with you, man, did they switch places often.
Oh, like
Even in just
in
like,
rooms.
Like a single 1 second shot of the Harkonnen headquarters,
Right.
and then back to the desert, stuff
Right.
like that. And
Okay.
I didn't mention it often because sure,
There's a lot to say already. You bring up something like, I'm sorry, we're going to be talking about Dune forever today, but this is what this is. I have to bring this up now, and I have to give some context now. So this is a point that Matthew Colville, check out Matthew Colville on YouTube. He's a D&D YouTuber, but also talks about Dune a whole bunch. And I probably have quoted him already without knowing that I did, but now I will do explicitly. And his point was that the first Dune movie by Denis Villeneuve,
Dennis Villeneuve.
yes, sort of didn't look as beautiful as it should or could. Right. His point being that if you just go to Death Valley or any other desert area, the land is so beautiful. If you just take a picture with your smartphone, you will automatically have a really beautiful nature shot. And the first movie was sort of muted and not quite as stunningly beautiful as it could have been. And Matthew Colville thought that this is probably a deliberate artistic choice by Denis Villeneuve. And
Okay.
it's like,
No, I like where this is going.
yeah. How did you feel about that? I know we've talked about this off stream about the first movie, where I think you sort of agreed, right, that they feel a bit muted and colorless.
I agree for the first movie.
Yeah.
I also surprisingly, and yeah, I think our conclusion was hopefully because in the first movie they arrive on Dune, this very dangerous, very
Yeah.
weird place.
And they're very anxious and tense,
Yeah.
and so everything is a bit muted and claustrophobic.
It fits, yes.
Yeah.
And then it should open up the more they become accustomed to Dune. And it sort of does. But I would say that I felt like Denis Villeneuve was trying to accomplish that and didn't quite.
Really, that's harsh criticism to a guy who's basically his whole thing is taking beautiful pictures, right? He's a cinema director.
Yes, but I feel like that's also part of his style. That
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of his movies, and I've seen, I think, the last, I don't know, 5 of his.
Hey, dude makes good movies, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
But they're always kind of muted, and
Yeah.
they have like a certain color scheme, and it just keeps going for Dune Part 2.
Right.
There's, for example, there are beautiful desert scenes. For example, there's this one scene where Chani and Paul are sitting on a dune, and they are talking about their names. Paul has just been named, and I think that's the first time they kiss. And the camera sort of rotates around them, gives them a bit of space, and shows. And they even talk about how beautiful Dune is.
Yeah.
And shows the desert up to the horizon, right?
Yeah.
Just desert. And
That
desert
should
and
look
desert.
beautiful.
Yeah, and
Shani even says how beautiful it is.
and there's supposed to be spice in the air, and we got to get a close up of spice flying in the air, and that's kind of beautiful. But the larger shot of Dune, it's just I wouldn't call it beautiful.
Right.
It's still kind of muted.
It hasn't substantially changed from the first movie, which I guess is the correct choice if you're going for that. Right, at this point, it's deliberate,
Yeah,
and then you stick with it, I guess.
You asked me what Dune is about.
Yes.
And kind of hard to answer that because there's a lot going on.
Yeah, it is.
But
Talk about what's your favorite, like, the main theme for you.
mini story, yes.
Yeah.
To me, it's still
Sorry, that was like neighbor sounds.
Yes.
My apartment.
what's
Yeah,
going
I
on
don't
out
know.
there.
It's like Denis Villeneuve is coming because we heard we're shitting on his cinematography.
Yes. Well, I'm ready.
You are a blind YouTuber and you dare anyway. Yeah. You haven't even seen the movie. Please continue, Vincent. Don't mind my silliness.
Yes. It's still about Paul becoming a prophet or being a prophet.
Yeah.
But it's more about revenge, I feel like. About
They even mentioned that.
about killing the Harkonnen. And then it sort of twists at the end towards as soon as he drinks the water of life, it becomes more about the holy war and all that. But it feels like the main point is living with the Fremen and killing Harkonnen.
Yeah, I can see that. That is a big theme. And Jessica says, right, like, your father wasn't about revenge. He didn't believe in revenge and stuff.
And he's
At that point, he definitely is. And then later, after he drinks the water of life, I feel like that's Paul phase 2. And I'm less clear about his motivations. He
Yes.
feels like a different person slightly.
that's Super Saiyan Paul.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
I still really like how they showed that. It's also, I think, why I didn't like it as much as the first one is, for one, the editing, because I will say for me, it's like there were just enough moments where I was slightly thrown off that it was noticeable, and that's not very enjoyable.
Sure.
But also because it's just, I feel like it's a more depressing film.
It is kind of depressing.
Yeah, because at the end of the first movie,
Yeah.
right, the Atreides have horrible things happen to them, and then the end of the first movie ends sort of in a happy ending, right? There's a new
Right.
beginning with the Fremen. There are opportunities. stuff's looking up. And here it's okay, we're fighting a war where millions will die now.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
billions
That is
even.
depressing. And Paul doesn't like it either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not far from the book. I think that's basically the same issue in the book, but in the book I didn't notice it quite as much.
Yeah.
And it's more about well, it's not really a happy ending, but sort of, right? He gets the princess.
As I said, it feels more triumphant.
Yes.
Yeah.
And here it's okay.
Now we're going to have to kill millions of people.
And there will be
Yeah. And my wife is angry at me now.
Yes, obviously that's also like that comes second, but it's also very important. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's
And you don't even have this happy murderous toddler running around.
exactly.
Because she was kind of an upbeat personality in those books.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of.
And she also gets really cool in the later books. But
I believe it.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's just apparently that's an issue for me.
It makes sense to me, and I think we share a lot of the same perception. I can try to give you my take
Yes,
on it,
please do.
and that might also explain why I did not feel the middle part sort of lagging. And this just now came up for me while you were talking. This is just like just a phrase that I feel encapsulates sort of how I felt during the movie, right? Like a theme premise type phrase, right? And this is actually now a quote from our other favorite thing in the world, Disco Elysium, the great RPG. A quote by Classier, super spy and femme fatale in Disco Elysium.
Yes.
And this to me is the theme of Dune, right? And it is the sentence that she said at some point, love is terrifying. Do you know what I mean? I mean, do you remember it in Disco?
Do not remember it in Disco, but
Really?
I kind
Okay.
of see what you mean for Dune.
Well, and it's just me, right? I love that theme of love and fear, I guess. So this might just be me reading stuff into Dune, but that's kind of what we do here, right? With all of the stuff.
Yeah.
So, like Dune is also obviously, I keep saying it's dense, right? There's a whole angle on ecology in Dune, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
and like you could make this about global warming and all that stuff, and that's fine. It's just that's not what kept me excited while I was watching it. And that's not my main sort of theme takeaway. But I'm not going to make it into a video essay now. It's just, to me, water equals love, right? I think if you have that basic metaphor going, then the whole movie kind of makes sense to me. And it's about control, and I mean love, not in this sort of lovey-dovey romantic candlelight dinner way, but love as in giving something space and letting it be, and being selfless and giving up control, right? Control is another big theme in the movie, right? And Paul says that he's afraid not of losing control, but of going into the south, drinking the water, and then gaining control, right? And that's when the jihad starts and all that stuff. And it's also it was funny to me. We've been playing a lot of Caves of Cod recently, right? And that's a movie also, right, with the phrase "live and drink," right? And it's a post-apocalyptic wasteland, and there's like a lack of water is a big theme in that game.
Yeah.
And in general, I would say, there's, I guess you would call it the Western Hermetic tradition. It's just this general thing of water, earth, fire, and air, right? These sort of elements. In that sort of system, water is often equated with feelings, and specifically the feeling of love, right? And you have this, if you like, people who are into D&D sometimes are also into tarot cards, right? Because you can use them to like generate random stuff. We've done this a bunch, and you also there's this one suit for tarot cards, right? They've got swords and cups and all that other stuff, and those are all sort of assigned to different elements, right? Swords is air, and there's the other ones, and then there's also cups, right? The things you fill with water, and those are associated with water. And also, if you look at those tarot cards, that's always the sort of lover cards and like sort of more familial themes and stuff. So there's this whole theme going on in like Western canon, let's say. And also, I have to bring this up because I love this guy, and we've just played Caves of Cut, and I brought it up there. T.S. Eliot with his whole The Wasteland poem, right?
Yeah.
Which I find appropriate not only to Caves of Cut because it's post-apocalyptic, but also to The Wasteland of Arrakis. I brought it up back then because of the red rock part, right?
Yeah.
There's a shadow on this red rock. Come under the shadow of this red rock. I will show you fear and a handful of dust. Guess what the main theme is in that poem? It's lack of water, and there is no water here, right? And also being equated with, I would say, a lack of feeling, a lack of love, a lack of heart, etc. And okay, now I've established that as like my context. Yes. Now probably maybe what I'm getting at with Dune and stuff. The Fremen are collecting water to create a sort of green paradise on Dune, but of course the water being a metaphor for love, it's more like right. They're not. Now in the metaphor, in my imaginary version of Dune, they're not actually creating a sort of ecological, physical paradise, but it's like, people getting along with each other, being kind, being in harmony with each other. It's like, I love that quote. I think it's not in the movie, but it is in the books. When Jessica sort of gets to know the Fremen, and she says about them, these people are in league with the future, right? With their extreme discipline of collecting all this water and stuff, and how dedicated they are to making a better place. And contrast that with like the villains of the story, the Harkonnen, the animals who don't know love, and who are just shitty to each other and to themselves. And it's just this horrible dystopian vision. And they have no discipline either, except maybe a little bit Fade Ralpha. But the Fremen do, right? And yeah, I don't know. That's already, for me, that's enough to sort of then in the middle part just look out for that, because I'm interested in that. I want to see, okay, how do they manage this, if that's really their ideal, having like collecting love, I guess that sounds hella cheesy, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
How does that work with this actually super harsh, cruel, like seemingly cruel society, right? Those two things seem to contrast, but how do they make it work? How, if we equate love with like giving up control, how does that work for Paul with his like seeing the future and like, I guess, becoming this prophetic leader and kind of giving up control, right? And then turning it into a jihad, something he doesn't want, but it's also kind of a triumph of love, but in a terrifying way. And like, do you know what I mean? I just find that interesting. I don't have all the answers to these things, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of the fact that I definitely had that same analysis for the book,
Right.
where the Atreides are coming from, what's it called? Callahan? No.
Calabasas. No,
Something like that.
Caladan, I think.
Caladan,
Yeah.
yes. Which is
Full of water.
full of water, yes.
And right, it's we see a sort of functioning, happy family life on Caladan in the first couple
And
scenes.
It's definitely also mentioned there that their troops are so effective because they have teachers who care for them, who really engage with them. Unlike the Harkonnen, where they're just trained and probably, I don't know, whipped, stuff like that.
Yeah, they rule through power and fear.
And I definitely had that same thought that Paul and the Harkonnen are polar opposites in that regard, specifically in terms of love for others and compassion and all that. And I wonder if I didn't really see that so much for the movie because it's so strong in the book.
Right.
And maybe the movie just fell short of it for me, because
But don't you think the movie also wants to be about that? Because of specific stuff they do, right? I mean, at the end, the Emperor even says, "Do you know what the problem was with Atreides? He was a weak man. He was a man who believed in the power of the heart. But the heart is not supposed to rule, right?
yeah, and for me, like the movie is trying to do that, but doesn't quite.
Doesn't
get
make it.
there.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Because, as I said, for me, it's a movie about Paul and his decision to start or not start a jihad, basically, and his fight with the Fremen and the Harkonnen. Because even
Yeah, but isn't the jihad that's central to the love theme as well, right? That's I feel like it's sort of the tension and the stuff that I also sort of wrestle with, and I don't know if I really can read it this way, but it's almost like love is the thing that always has to give up control, right? And normally in everyday life, society and the rule
Don
of law.
Solarian, ultimately Dune is about two questions. Do you really have a choice or is it just an illusion? Second question is, would you still love me if I was a worm?
I mean, that sounds like a joke, but it's also maybe sort of correct.
the
And
second part, I've read the wiki, and that specifically.
yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go into it.
I mean, the is so interesting. See, that's why I say it's dense. You can like talk a lot about this,
Yeah.
because this whole freedom of choice, or is it an illusion and stuff? That's definitely in there, and that's a whole different angle you can take, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm just not going to get into that now. We'll have to do the second Dune cast or whatever. But I forgot what I was going to say, which is fine. I've said a lot, but. Hold on, I think it's coming back to me. Oh yeah, the jihad.
Yeah.
So there's this idea that love, being the giving up of control and letting the heart rule, isn't very effective in everyday life, right? The Harkonnens, being the champions of sort of terror and fear and control and stuff, they are ostensibly successful, right? They control the spice.
Yeah.
They've managed to gain the upper hand and stuff. And love and compassion and stuff can't really do that so much, because once they become active, there's already a kind of hatred built into that, right? In the sense of whenever you oppose reality itself, what is currently the case, there's a kind of aversion already in that. That's why the good guys in so many stories are so inactive, right? It's to take Dresden Files, right? The angel that comes there.
Yes.
What was his name?
Uriel?
I think he makes that point even, that they can't become active or whatever.
Unless the bad guys interfere, in which
Yeah.
case they can do exactly as much as the bad guys.
Yeah, if they break the rules, right? But those are the rules established in the Dresden Files.
Yeah.
And, okay, whatever, put a pin in that. But I feel like the jihad is like this fantasy of, okay, what if we've accumulated enough water? What if this whole love thing that had to take sort of play the second fiddle for so long, what if that has reached a critical mass where it then finally gets to, like, lord over all the shitty Harkonnen people and actually become active and put its foot down and sort of, right? Paul is riding the sandworm of this terrible, terrifying love that will now make the universe nice. God damn it, whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of how I feel about the jihad. But it's inherently paradoxical, and right?
Yes.
Yeah. Like, it's not totally convincing. But that's kind of the tension also. And then, you wanted to resolve that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I can totally see it. I'm just.
Yeah, I know this is all very abstract, but that's what's going through my mind when I'm sitting after about an hour and a half in this movie, and like the sagging middle part.
That's what happens when you can't see the movie.
Yeah, I start dreaming about T.S. Eliot, and what would he say about this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You take a bit of spice and then shit's
Oh, I'm sure he
getting
did.
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can totally see that. And maybe they show more of that in the third
Yeah,
movie
maybe.
if they do that.
But
I'm
it's not what you got as the main thing from this movie.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I can totally see that
And
as well.
I definitely felt like a main theme was sort of missing for me.
Interesting. It wasn't focused for you in general.
I mean, the fight against the Harkonnen, sure. I think it's more so that I was missing the strong main themes from the book, and this movie had themes, but something was missing for me.
Interesting. So,
Yes.
ratings over under. What's your rating for Dune Part 2? 1 out of 10. 1 being terrible, 10 being the best movie of all time, which is Shawshank Redemption. At least on IMDb. That's kind of the highest rated movie.
So I think I don't know what I gave Dune 1 or Part 1, but probably something around 9.5.
Yeah.
I really liked it. This one, I think like 8.5 sounds about right for
That's
me.
funny, yeah. Because I agree with it.
Really?
But 8.5 is still really good.
Yes, exactly.
If we're doing IMDb style ratings, I would probably say Dune 1 is 9.0 and this is 8.5. That would have been my
Interesting.
thing. Yeah.
I expected you to rate it higher. But
I know, because I spoke so highly, right? But I feel like 8.5, like, I guess like you were being negative, but on still a very high level, right? We both agree these are really good movies.
yeah, I mean, I spent over the last month, I spent 10 hours in cinemas watching
That's true,
this
yeah,
movie,
yeah.
and I like it.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That makes sense. So weirdly, even though we sound like we disagree, we agree completely on the numbers.
Yeah, weirdly.
Interesting.
I'm really curious if my opinion completely changes if they release a third movie. Like maybe this works really well as a second part of a trilogy.
Yeah, now I feel like you should have just made an HBO series.
Ooh.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
but
know.
that's always kind of
I know. I always say that as well.
Yeah.
But anything I like, because then it's just more of the same, which I like.
the Dresden Files HBO series.
I mean, aren't they making that?
I don't know.
Anyway, we have to do over under because we always do. And I'm
Yes.
going to make you do it now. I stole this, by the way, from a nice movie podcast called 3x3. Don't know if that's still around, but that's where I got the game from. So we both now have to say a movie that is better than Dune Part 2 and a movie that is worse than Dune Part 2. And there has to be some kind of bridge, right? It might be thematic, it might have the same actor or whatever. You're free to find something, but there has to be some bridge between your picks, and you have to bracket them sort of closely. So if you find a movie that's better than Dune Part 2, it has to be better, but only slightly better. And if it's a movie that's worse than Dune Part 2, you can't just say Troll 2 for every movie. Just pick a generally bad movie. It has to be only slightly worse than Dune 2.
And it's really hard.
I know, people always kind of hate it when I do this, but come on.
The
Yeah.
easiest answer is, of course, over is Dune 1.
Yes.
And
How did you know? That was my pick.
the under is David Lynch's Dune.
Okay, I see what you did there.
Yeah, but that's the
Yeah.
easy answer.
Yeah,
and
yeah. Okay, I don't want to pick the same over, okay? So just...
yeah.
Or
Answer
I mean,
your-
are those your answers, Vincent? I thought that was your pick now.
Not yet. I'm thinking about it, but
okay.
give me your answers.
Yeah, here's my over, okay? A movie that I like slightly better than Dune, and which I feel like is sort of about the same thing. Guess it's not really about all that love thing, although I made a huge deal out of it, but kind of, I think we can all agree that Dune is in many ways about spiritual awakening, whatever that means. And another movie that I like better, and it's probably just my favorite movie of all time, is 1999's The Matrix with Keanu Reeves,
Good
right?
choice, yes.
And, you know, the comparison between Paul Mordeep and Neo works, I feel like.
Ball doesn't fly, but apart from that, it's
Yeah, like a giant doom cock through that. Like that's only in the later Matrix movies, and I don't like super love those. They're fine, but the first one is just We didn't get into this. Maybe one day we'll make a whole episode about that because it's also sort of relevant for RPGs and stuff. The whole hero's journey, monomyth and stuff. The Joseph Campbell book about that whole structure of myth. I think that Dune is very much spot on that, and so is The Matrix.
Yeah.
So they're very much related. I kind of like The Matrix a little bit better. So that's my pick. I have to think about the under. Do you have new ideas, Vincent? For your
Yes,
over-under?
I think you mentioned hero's journey, and I'm thinking very much about the way that Paul Atreides leads in this movie, and this leader of war parties and rebellion, and maybe you're already
Right.
seeing where this is going, because I think my over is A New Hope.
Oh, you bastard! Okay, yeah. I was gonna say like for under. I was gonna say episode 1 or something.
Yeah.
Maybe we will pick those. I don't know. But I see. I
it's
like your pick.
Closely related. yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because I mean, it's also about the hero's journey, just like you said, right?
Yeah.
But they
And-
have such a different take on it.
Yes.
It feels so different.
It ends by killing. Well, okay, the A New Hope doesn't end with killing the Emperor, but sort of. There's also an orb that they have to infiltrate and destroy, just like the Emperor's ship here. So there's a lot of
Yes.
same situations.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like your picks. Here's my under. Okay, I picked one. I was gonna pick Star Wars, but now I can't.
I just figured out an under.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, this is sort of.
So A New Hope is your over, and what is your under?
I never actually watched it, but Tremors.
Tremors.
Yeah, they also have worms that fight humans.
Okay, that's a. But Vincent, I feel like you're not bracketing very closely here.
I think it's a pretty good movie, and I'm actually going to watch it.
I don't know it. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's just like 80s
Okay.
action movie.
Here's a runner-up for under David Cronenberg's. What was it? Slither or whatever. Wait, isn't that a later movie with Nathan Fillion? I don't know. Pick any David Cronenberg movies because worms. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, okay, fair.
Body horror. I don't know. Would you love me if I was a worm? I guess. Okay,
Yeah.
my real under coming up, and maybe we can play it to close out the podcast segment of the stream. That would be nice for me to cut into the podcast
You can
later
type
on.
if you want to.
Okay, yeah, this is how we will reveal my under. Okay.
Yes. You're in a Google search bar.
Here, play this. Play the credits over it.
It's 25 minutes.
I know. We'll watch the whole thing.
Okay.
Just yeah.
I don't know.
Enjoy. This is my under for Dune. I like this slightly less than Dune Part 2.
Out of the dead land, mixing memory and desire, stirring dull roots with spring rain.
There's the
Winter
water.
kept us warm, covering earth in forgetful snow.
Yeah, so everyone, this is actual Mr. T.S. Eliot reading out his modern poem, The Wasteland.
With a shower of
Good
rain.
choice. I like it.
We stopped
Yeah,
in the colonnade.
but notice how I'm not completely anti-fun. This is my under, right? I like the Dune movie a little bit better than this. It's a bit more exciting. Also, this isn't his best poem, in my opinion.
In the recommended bar, there's a thumbnail of Obi-Wan in A New Hope with the title The Wasteland, T.S. Eliot, read by Alec Guinness. So we're on the right track.
Oh shit, that's weird, man. I guess I know what I'm doing tonight to put myself to sleep.
Go south in the winter.
Anyway, thanks for listening to the podcast discussion about Dune. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the A Dungeon About podcast. We record live, usually every Thursday at 4 p.m. Central European Time on Twitch, twitch.tv/HeMakesMePlay_live. You can also watch some of our Let's Plays and other videos we create on the He Makes Me Play YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@HeMakesMePlay. And you can also follow us on Twitter @makes_play. Thanks everyone. See you next time.